And
those are some tough questions.
they are. And so we have a guest speaker, and I hear you guys work with McKinsey some, right?
Yes, Space Foundation.
I don't know.
Space Foundation is a big fan of McKinsey. We love working with them. And so
Who is it that's coming?
Jesse Klempner is a partner at McKinsey and Company. So without further ado, let's welcome Jesse to the stage.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me, Kira. Really, really appreciate it. I think we can probably move to the next slide. We live in an incredibly exciting time in the industry. It is one where you can put a deposit down on a commercial space flight. You can get live video of Earth any time of day. And you can think about supersonic travel once again in the not too distant future. The Aerospace Industry Association began to think about this question of what is the future going to look like? And they said, well, let's pick a date that's far enough out that it is not beyond the realm of the possible, but it is one that is exciting and aspirational for all of us. We had the privilege of partnering with AIA to think about what the world's going to look like. To do that, we had the opportunity to talk to a lot of people, but at its core, the headline from the study was the industry is going to be even more central to our lives in how we work and how we do business, how we communicate, and how we live in 2050 than it is today. Go to the next slide, please. As I said, we had the opportunity to speak with more than 70 industry leaders, government leaders, leaders of our armed forces, investors, and new entrants into the space. We got the opportunity to ask them a wide variety of questions, two of which I think are most relevant to our conversation today. What are the future missions, use cases, and platforms that will emerge across domains? And what are the key disruptive trends that are impacting the industry? What you see on the bottom are a subset of the folks that we got the opportunity to speak with. And all of them, to their credit, and which we're deeply appreciative for, were incredibly generous with their time and were incredibly candid about their views on where the industry was heading. Next slide, please. At the same time that we begin to think about the future, in the background there is a confluence of trends that is uncontrollable by many of us and is going to affect where the future is headed. I'm going to touch on a few of them. There's a number of them listed here. But the competition for talent and the growing skill gap is very real. And it is going to continue to be real to such a degree that by 2050, we may have a requirement that we have to relax some of the constraints in which we have lived. We're going to have to revisit some of the accepted truths that we have abided by. And we may have to change who and how we hire and incentivize people within the industry and outside of the industry. At the same time that we are doing that, there is a widely variant set of capital sources that are changing how we are incentivized and how we think about interacting with our customers, with our investors, and with our supply chain. And finally, one that would not necessarily seem particularly exciting for this conversation, but will be incredibly important to all of the new entrants and startups that had the opportunity to present today. IP ownership and liability is going to need to shift considerably in the industry if we are going to enable and provide returns on all of the investments that people are putting into this industry. Next slide. We tend not to think of the industry in terms of the traditional domains, air, sea, land, nor do we think of it in terms of commercial and government. We don't necessarily think those are the right ways to segment this industry. We think about what are the missions that the industry more broadly solves for society. The industry moves people and goods, both for government customers as well as for tourism and for business travel, or to deliver many of the goods that all of us rely on every day. At the same time, it senses and connects many of us, whether those are communications that flow through space or pictures that come down from space that enable us to predict the storm that is coming our way, our travel, or to count cars in parking lots. It secures and defends our national interests. It drives research and exploration for its own sake, and it provides a set of essential services that underpin the industry and all of the things that we do today, such as air traffic management or positioning, navigation, and timing, which most of us think of as GPS. Slide. One of the reasons that we and the more than 70 leaders that we spoke to were excited about this is that there are a huge number of new growth opportunities and frontiers that are arising and will arise by 2050. And just to ground all of us, 2050 may sound very far away. It is no further away than 1990 is in the past. By 2050, we believe that unmanned aerial vehicles, whether they be for people or for cargo, will be widespread and will change the way that we move and the way that commerce works for all of us. For the folks here at the Space Symposium, we believe that space tourism and transport is not hype. This is something that will be nascent by 2050 and will begin to be something that we consider more frequently as an alternative for how we spend our leisure dollars. Similarly, space manufacturing and mining, which was something that we may not have thought much about that long ago, is not that far off in the future. Again, 30 years is not that far. Similarly, on driving research and exploration, commercialized exploration is something that will be, again, emerging by 2050. This is a huge set of emerging opportunities and use cases and growth opportunities for all of the new entrants that presented today, some of the more established industry participants, as well as folks that are adjacent to the industry and are considering whether this is an exciting place to be, which unequivocally we think it is. Slide. What we describe as Vision 2050 won't happen on its own. These are things that need to be fostered and enabled by government, by society more broadly, by the talent that would flow into the industry between now and then. And so we began to think a bit about how should we enable and accelerate these opportunities for the future. Next slide. We thought, along with the 70 plus participants and our AIA partners, about a set of 6 enablers that we think are critical between now and 2050. To touch on just a few of them, the first enabler would be something around autonomy and insights. Without advancements in autonomy, we will not be able to have unmanned traffic management, autonomous decision-making, or some of the significant insights from unstructured data that we're all counting on in the future. Similarly, just to jump a few rows below, many of us see the images of flying drones or taxis, and if any of you have been to the AIA interactive wall, which is in one of the pavilions, you will get a visualization on your phone of how this might work. Many of us don't think about the more mundane tons and tons of concrete that we may need to pour for physical infrastructure, for delivery, for docking, and for landing pads. This is significant, but you cannot get to our vision of an established, unmanned version of the future without it. At the bottom, we also talk about there's a mindset and culture component that is pervasive and consistent. And this is not just a perspective on the industry participants that have been around for a very long time. This is a mindset and a cultural shift that is across the ecosystem. All of the stakeholders need to begin to think about transitioning from career paths to opportunity pathways, which is how the rest of the commercial industry thinks about that they have and that they're hoping to attract. Next slide. We believe that to drive Vision 2050, the industry and participants and stakeholders should consider a number of priorities. We've listed 5 of them here. At its core, we believe these are the ones that people should focus on because the industry is headed towards an inflection point on so many levels. There are going to be shifts in the profit pools in the value chain. There are going to be new use cases, and there are going to be existing use cases that decrease in importance. We believe that remaining competitive or increasing competitiveness with some of the other folks that may be focused on this, be they from our country or others, will require evolving, acquiring a new set of capabilities, as well as being able to work with a new type and set of industry participants. When we think about what those actual priorities are, and the AIA was forward-leaning on all 5 of these, we think about partnership and collaboration with a new type of industry participants needs to change and evolve. Established corporate policies on who we can partner with and why, be they because of IT regulations or because of their perspectives on ITAR, need to continue to evolve so that emerging use cases can be enabled by the new technologies that may be held by other industry participants. We also believe that investing in new use cases can't just be done by the 10 companies and others like them that are focused on this. This needs to happen across the industry. It needs to happen with customers. It needs to happen with the larger and more established players in the industry, as well as some of the growing new entrants that have staked out positions on many of these new use cases. There also needs to be a concerted effort on defining standards both for technology and standards for interaction. This is a place where the United States has led the world, and the world has looked to us for leadership for many, many years. Concerted efforts here need to occur so that this is not ceded to others who may not think about safety in the same way that we do. Similarly, we also believe that there need to be significant internal capabilities, both on the established players and the new industry participants that need to change. Whether those are technologies that come from adjacent industries, like the technology industry, or some of our more established industrial companies, these are things that the industry needs to be more proactive in capturing so that we can begin to accelerate the acceptance and the use case prototyping. Finally, and not to under focus on this one, we believe that transforming industry-wide culture and processes is crucial. There needs to be a consistent and sustained focus on recruiting and retaining talent, fostering innovation, and incentivizing innovation. We believe that this is the core of what has made the industry such a powerhouse for the country and for the world for many, many years. And there's much, much more to be done here to enable what we believe is an incredibly exciting vision for how central the industry can be for our future. So thank you all for listening. I hope you look forward to listening and learning about who the winner is, and look forward to hearing from many of you. Thank you.